Dear shorthand writer, this is English shorthand dictation number 149 and the dictation speed is 140 words per minute. Ready? Start. Honorable members, we are now taking up the discussion of the draft constitution. I will leave it to the members who will speak to take as little time as possible so that as many of them as wish to take part in the debate may be accommodated. I may assure them of that. I have been all through the debate from the beginning. I have not missed a single word or a single sentence of any member. There is nothing new that can be said by any member, and the only object in speaking at this stage is not to add anything to the knowledge or to the information which has been given to the House to enable it to decide about the merits of the Constitution, but to enable members to have their names recorded so that when the reports are published, they may know that they also participated in the final discussions of the bill, and that can be done with one sentence. I assure them that their names will go down on the record even if they support the bill with one single sentence. With this suggestion, I now ask the honorable members to take up the discussion. Sir, first of all, I wish to thank you for the courteous and gracious manner in which you have invariably presided over the deliberations of this House. Deserving tribute has already been paid to the drafting committee for the way in which it has performed its arduous and responsible duties. I would like very briefly to pay a particular tribute to my honorable friend Dr. Ambedkar. I do not believe that any one of us can really gauge the volume of work and the intensity of concentration that must have been involved in the production of this voluminous document. I may not have agreed with him on some occasions, but it always gave me the greatest pleasure to listen to his tremendous grasp not only of fundamentals but of details, of the clarity with which he invariably presented his case. It has been said that this constitution has received a mixed reception. It is inevitable that its reception should have been mixed because inevitably it is a mixed constitution. It is composite in character. I believe that it is a proper blend between idealism on the one side and realism on the other. I know that some of my idealistic friends have criticized it. They would like to have seen, instead of this blend, something in the nature of the 10 Commandments, something which was so wholly idealistic that it would have wilted and died under the first impact of administrative realities and political difficulties. As I have said, I believe that we have borrowed enough from idealism to make the Constitution a fairly attractive and an aspiring document. On the other hand, we have not based it entirely on mundane considerations so as to take away from this the inspiring elements. I realize that it is not a perfect document, but at the same time, I feel that in hammering it out, we have traversed all the processes of the democratic manufactory. We have ranged through the whole gamut of democratic factors. There has been careful thought. There has been close analysis. There has been argument and counter-argument. There has been fierce controversy, and at one time I thought that the controversy was so fierce that we might reach the stage of settling it by actual physical force. But in the final analysis has pervaded a real sense of accommodation and a real feeling of forbearance. So far as the minority provisions are concerned, I cannot speak on behalf of any other minority, but I do claim to speak on behalf of the Anglo-Indian community. I have paid repeated tributes to the generous and understanding way in which the Anglo-Indian community has been dealt with under this constitution. All I need to say at this moment is to reiterate my own gratitude and appreciation for the very generous way in which the Anglo-Indian community has been treated. Now I shall deal very briefly with certain aspects of the Constitution. I agree with my honorable friend when he says that it might have been wiser for us not to have extended the franchise at one bound to universal suffrage. I recall the experience in Britain and the precedent of Britain. I am aware that the precedents and experience in other countries are not sacrosanct for us. Though some of us are in the habit of talking about democracy without understanding its real purpose and its real content, to my mind, a mere counting of heads has never constituted democracy. Democracy has always carried the implication that the exercise of the franchise would be made at least on a common sense basis, if not on an essentially rationalistic basis. I feel that there has been unjustified criticism of what has been stigmatized as over-centralization. I will say quite frankly that I was very happy. I was jubilant at every provision that tended to place more and more power into the hands of the center. Here again, we tend to mouth slogans about democracy, but in the final analysis, in its actual spirit and content, what does democracy imply? It does imply the greatest good of the greatest number. What is the increasing evidence which raises every day before our eyes? Evidence with regard to most of the provincial administrations. Do we not see that there is an increasing evidence every day of increasing maladministration, of an increasing negation of the fundamental principles of democracy? Quite frankly, in the transition stage, I would have been one of those who would have supported our going the whole hog to accept a unitary form of government. We might have administered the provinces through governors supported by a permanent civil service. At any rate, I feel that I ought to place on record my disappointment that certain vital subjects like education, health, and police should have been left entirely within the ambit of provincial autonomy. We have given a head to provincial regimes in the matter of education, and today I regret to say that within a very short time they have taken the bit between their teeth and are running wild. What is happening in the central provinces? The educational policy of the central provinces represents a deliberate negation of democracy, represents a travesty of the provisions of secular democracy. The linguistic minorities in the central provinces only look forward to educational and linguistic death. That is what is happening. They have no regard for the linguistic minorities. Overnight, they are pursuing an intolerant, parochial and aggressive linguistic policy, which is an absolute negation of every provision we have embodied in the fundamental rights. You have given a head to these provinces and they are running amok. The larger interests of the country mean nothing to them. My own conviction is that a few years will be sufficient to make the leaders of the country realize the great blunder that we have committed in allowing education to remain entirely in the provincial sphere. You will see balkanization of the country will take place so quickly because through this powerful lever which you have left in the hands of the provinces, they will split this country up into linguistic enclaves, seal one from the other, so that the idea of a common nationality will recede more and more into the background. I feel very strongly about this. I do not know how the damage that is going to be done can be undone unless some radical steps are taken in near future. Another matter which I would have liked to have brought at least in the concurrent list is health. In some provinces it is all right. The country would have been more fortunate to have transported outstanding men from the provinces to the center to administer the country on a unitary basis. As I said, we have left the subject of health in the hands of provincial governments, and inevitably this greatest nation building subject will be dealt with in a feeble and halting manner, according to the different capacities of the different provincial regimes. Last but not the least, I should like to have seen police being brought on to the concurrent list. The police in a province like Bombay have a good reputation.